to be able to talk in person. So I'm very happy to be able to welcome you. And my job for today has been made quite clear by the previous speakers. Well, you know, we're opening this new center. We're very happy to open it, but you know, what is it, right? So here I am to present the new Copenhagen Center for Geometry and Topology. So it's about geometry and topology interacting. So I will start with geometry and topology, and I will lead you through how I want these two subjects to interact. And we will go through these words: moduli, geodesics, and singularity. So that's the plan for. And I do hope that you will all follow this includes. Okay, so we start with geometry. No, don't tell me. Oh no, we don't. Yes. Okay, we do start with geometry. Okay, what is geometry? Well, I'll say it's the study of objects. I feel like saying geometric objects, but that wouldn't be so useful. For geometer, distances and measuring in angles are important. Okay, so and I have a slogan I want to start with, which is geometry is everywhere. Okay, and I said distance. And I say everywhere, and today nobody doubts this. Geometry is everywhere. We keep hearing this. Keep your safe distance. Okay, so we're thinking about it every day. Right here in this room, we thought, you know, where do I sit? Right. Okay, so we are taking the. I want to be a geometer to begin with, so I take my geometer's hat. I want to keep it. But, you know, I have this special hat today, and I'm being a geometer, and I think about this question, you know, how do I put this, right? And I want to do this in an optimal manner, so I want to do this as best as possible. So, you know, there may be many people, and as we are here, and we want to try to space out as much as we can. So we're looking for some sort of optimal solution, which would be probably something with equidistance, like people are as far from their neighbors, you know, they have the same distance to all of their neighbors, and this should hold for everybody. Something like this, right? So let's try to think this through as a mathematical problem. And it's good when you have a mathematical problem, and maybe it's difficult to start with the simplest case. And the simplest case is, say we are on a line, right? I have a line. I must say the thing I'm enjoying most today is to be able to move around when I talk. Last talk I gave was online, and it was so horrifying. You know, you're there sitting and you're not allowed to do anything, right? So we're going to move today, right? Okay, so we are on a line, right? And we have a certain number of people, and we want to space them as best as we can. What do? We measure the length of the line, and we divide by the number of people minus 1. Right, and then we space them out. Easy, done. Dimension 1 on a straight line. Now, we'll do slightly more fancy geometry, right? So, you know, I'm in a shopping mall, and I want to go to a shop that's sort of around the corner on the next floor. I'm not going to go on a straight line, right? This is not going to happen. I'm going to go straight to the stairs that go up, and then, you know, I'll have to go around this pillar, and, you know, something like that. So I'm not going to follow a straight line. I'm going to follow a given curve. I'm trying to optimize my way, but I'll be walking on a curve, right? And then I have to space people on that curve. So I found some explanation on how to measure on the internet, but, you know, the idea is the same, right? I mean, I can measure lengths along the curve, and I can space out and keep it as well as I can. Not too difficult. Okay, so we go one dimension up. Dimension 2. So this is our reality, right? I'm not just moving on this one line here. I'm actually also going back and forth, right? I have a 2-dimensional space to walk around, and so I should ask myself, you know, how do I optimize having people spaced around? I found this sign on the internet. I looked at, you know, what instructions do I get, and I found this instruction, and I was a little bit puzzled. You know, what does this mean? How do I act when I see this, right? I don't know. I guess it's meant to scare you. It is a little bit like, you know. So I didn't find this one so useful. So I found another one. I thought that was very clear. Okay, so we place people. You know, if I have so many people, I have to place them in a room. I follow this instruction. So I'm thinking more people in this. So here's my version of it. So I take my room. I draw some big grid, right? Lines one way, lines the other way, and at every crossing I put a puzzle. And I make the grid as large as I can, depending on how many crossings I want to do. Okay? That's a solution to place people equally around. Is it a good solution? No. You know, I was very happy to notice that the Faculty of Science knows that this is not the good solution. If you look around on the seats, what did they do? They didn't do this, right? They did that. Right, so if you want to space people out as much as possible, every other line you should shift them, right? So if I shift them, my neighbors on the same line, they're still at the same distance as they were, but I've gotten further away from the person that was in front of me without getting too close to anybody else. Yes? There's me. Okay, so we just found this better solution, and now, you know, people between different rows are actually further apart than they used to be. So actually I could put these lines a little closer together, but I may as well. And now you see that the grid I should have drawn is not this square grid I had before, but it's rather a triangular grid, right? There's a lot of equilateral triangles. And I want you to notice one thing about this grid is it has, you know, each person sits at the center of a hexagon. It has exactly 6. Everybody has exactly 6 closest neighbors, and they are sat around in a regular hexagon. Okay, so this is a problem in mathematics that is well known. No problem of this is called the circle packing, right? Because if I'm a person and I want to keep distance from other people, really, you know, I'm thinking a circle, right? All around me, there should be nobody in this circle, and then there's a person next to me that has also a circle, and our circles shouldn't bump into each other. Right? So we're trying to put as many circles as possible in a given area. Okay, and the first solution we had was this one, this you know, square grid, and then the better solution we had is this one, where actually you can put more circles. So if you count, I mean, here you have 5 rows of 7 circles, where here there's 6 rows, and you can see, you know, there's more lost space in this way. This one is called the circle packing, because the square packing, because each circle uses a little square of space, whereas this one is the hexagonism, where it only uses this little hexagon it is inscribed in. So you don't need a mathematician to find out that this is the right solution. Actually, this has been known forever, long before we started counting, because, you know, bees have known this, right? So geometry is everywhere, and this is, you know, your circle. Good. Right. So we did, you know, remember when we did the line, we did the curve. What we're going to do this now in dimension 2. Also, we did what we've just done is the plane, which is like, you know, I'm assuming I'm on a flat, straight, large plane, right? But that's not the reality, right? And we all know or believe, or somebody told us, that actually we live on a round sphere. Yeah, so we can ask the same question, right? Say, you know, we want to keep the world around. The coronavirus is a problem worldwide, not just in this room. So, you know, we should maybe try to space everybody on the Earth, you know, equally far apart in boats and everything. Right? So, and if you try, it's actually not so easy. I mean, you can imagine that, you know, your solution, your local solution we have now, I mean, if you try to spread it around, the thing is going to curve back to itself. It's never going to, I mean, it's not obvious. This is a problem. Maybe we're not going to do this worldwide, but this is an actual problem or situation electrons know about in atoms. Right? Electrons that are circling in the same orbit are actually trying to keep away from each other. So if you have two electrons, they will be antipodes. They will move around, but they will stay as far as possible from each other. So they know what to do. If you have three, they will actually form an equilateral triangle moving around. 4, it's a tetrahedron, which is there. 5 is some sort of double pyramid, and mathematicians here will know what comes at least with as an answer to some of these numbers. If you have 4, 6, 8, 12, or 20 things that you're trying to keep as far apart as possible on the sphere, they will take these very particular shapes, which are known as the platonic solids. These are the only 5 regular polytopes that are completely regular. But if you ask me how to put 7 or 23 electrons on the sphere or something like that, it's actually not easy to answer. This is not something where we have like a nice answer to this question. Very simple, but still difficult. Good, but you know, then you can keep thinking, you know, what about if the Earth was a donut? You know, this is a different question. It's, you know, you could do this on the surface. You're going to tell me, but the Earth is not a donut, and I know that. But you know, you also know that donuts are everywhere around. And you know, maybe I'm not trying to place people on the donut, but you know, maybe I have some other reason to worry about this problem. Good. Yes. So this is what a geometer topologist would call dimension 2. It's like we are on the surface of something. But looking at sign, of course, I saw also this one, which reminded me that, you know, I should have to think up and down, right? You know, we're not in dimension 2, we're in dimension 3, where we have 3 directions of freedom, right? So we should think of it and think about, you know, how do we do this? And going 1 dimension up is actually, it increases the difficulty of the problem. But we know quite a bit about this. I mean, we basically know this is what is known as the sphere packing, right? But before we were doing circles, but now, you know, I have a whole sphere around me. Maybe centered around the head. I don't know exactly what I'm, you know, supposed to do. But let's think sphere packing. So this is a, you know, 200 years ago, Gauss answered the question of what we would call the regular sphere packing. So you can, just as I was drawing grids, placing people around, you could draw grids in dimension 3 and ask, you know, what are the best ways of drawing some sort of regular grid that packs your spheres? And it will, you know, this is one solution. And there are a few things you can do. There's a little bit of freedom, but basically people who sell oranges and do their job properly, they know the solutions, and Gauss proved that they were right. But you have to go, like, it's only like 20 years ago that someone actually showed that there is no other packing that is as good. Like, if you throw your oranges in the box, it will not give you something as efficient as if you actually put them in the right spot. This is a mathematical, you know, a theorem we can prove. Okay. And of course, you know, I'm talking about oranges or you know, the coronavirus, but maybe we should think, you know, grains of salts or, you know, whatever other thing that is trying to settle itself in as little spaces as possible. Good. So that was the geometer, the geometry. I still have to say something about topology. But, so topology, I would say it's the study of the global shape of geometric objects. It's also about looking at geometric objects, but we are going to think of them more globally. And I want to illustrate this by an example. So, but before that, I need to think topologically. So we're going to take special glasses, right? And we're going to look at the world now as a topologist. We use them. Sometimes I want to use my glasses. So if I'm a topologist, if I'm a geometer and I look at these pictures, I say they're different, right? But you know, when I put my glasses, I say, ooh, these ones I have to count a little bit, I have to think a little bit, but you know, actually they're the same. So for a topologist, they're not very different. And what do I mean? When for a topologist, what is the topologist in me doing? It's counting actually. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 essential holes in this picture. The rest is noise. And then I count the other ones, and I go 11, 11. 26. Okay. So I mean, I think some you know, topologists are used to this, but you know, we have some non-topologists here, maybe some even non-mathematicians. So let me try to explain this a little bit more. So just illustrate. I'm going to illustrate a little bit. You know, how is this picture the same as this picture for a topologist? Well, what I mean is I can deform the one into the other. And so if I had to do this, well, in practice, the first thing I would do would be to take these spikes and, you know, push them into the picture. They don't really matter, these spikes. And then, you know, I have these nice triangles, but, you know, I could start deforming them. Yes, because it's some sort of rubbery type thing, and I can, you know, you can imagine I can slowly deform it into something such that in the end I just. Okay, so that's how a topologist looks at things. And then I want to say one important feature of topology which we want to use is a fact, which is that the global, when we look at the global features of an object, so I mean, here I have an upside down donut and a ball, and they look different. And to a topologist is going to say, yeah, there's a big hole here, right? Everybody knows they're different, but you know, for a topologist, this is on the heart of the difference. And the amazing fact is that this difference in global feature actually tells you something about the necessary existence of special points. This global feature can only exist if you think of, for example, of, you know, going down these shapes. If I start with the ball, I start at above the ball, then there's nothing, and then I get into the ball, and you know, I'm hitting something happens, and then nothing special happens. You know, I have a bigger and bigger circle, nothing special happens, and then it disappears. Okay, so these are two special points. If I do this with my donut, it appears, and it creates a circle that goes down, and then suddenly something else happens. And then nothing, and then oops, something else happens. So in this shape, I have 4 different things happening, and I cannot have this shape with only 2 things happening. So knowing something about the global features of a space can tell me about points in that space or existence of special points. So this is a really very useful thing. Good. So we had these words we had to talk about. So now we're ready. We have warmed up. We know geometry and topology. We're ready for moduli, geodesics and singularities. So I start with moduli space. A moduli space is another geometric object which is now made out of other geometric objects. So I want you to think of this deformation we saw. We had this grid, and I deformed it into a flower. Now you can think of this as living in some space. There's a space of all the possible grids-like things, and when I deform, I'm actually moving in a new space, right? So I'm thinking of this in a space. I'll give you one more example because it's a very important concept for us. We talked about these electrons on the sphere. And suppose I try to find a solution, you know, the best way of placing 7 electrons in the sphere. I don't know where to start. But, you know, maybe I should just not start one place, I should just be everywhere, right? I can look at all the possible configurations of 7 points on the sphere, even the bad ones. This one is obviously not very good, right? But if I take all of them, I have a new space, which is all the ways of trying to solve the problem, and I can look for a special point. And I can use various methods in that space to try to find a special point. Okay? So that's the moduli space part of what we do. Geodesics we have sort of talked about, so I didn't say the word, but you know, if I want to go, I was in my shopping mall and I wanted to go over there, I'm going to try to find the shortest path. And it might, you know, if I'm on a plane, it's going to be a straight line, but generally it's a, you know, it could be a very complicated path. Singularity we haven't really talked about yet, but a singularity is one of these special ones. Like we had this donut and you know, there was nothing happening, nothing, and then something. We hit a special point. That's a singularity. And then nothing. Another singularity. I'm Belgian, so I couldn't help having my little friends here. Good. So now we have these three words in place, and the last mathematical thing I want to do is to give you an illustration of how they fit together in something we actually do at the center. So here's an example, which is the search for geodesics. So the geodesics, remember, were these shortest paths, right? And as you said, if you want to go, you know, from one place to another, you're going to try to go on a geodesic because that's the shortest path. And if it's just in a plane, you just go on a straight line. This is something we know very well. We also know quite well what happens on the sphere. If we are, you know, here and we want to fly to India somewhere, when you know we go on a shortest path, which should be a straight line. There are no straight lines on the sphere, but you know we know on what is called we're going to go along what is called the big circle, the biggest possible circle. There's exactly one to go. The plane knows what to do. Okay, there's quite a big difference between these two types of geodesics. Indeed, if I'm in the first situation and I go from A to B, but then I decide to keep going, I'm going to go forever, right? I'm never going to stop. I'm going to go straight and never ever, I don't know where I'll end up, but I won't stop. Whereas if I do this on the Earth, on a sphere, then when I keep going straight, at some point I'm back to where I started. That's really quite cool, right? So these are really quite different. And the ones where when you come back, these are called the geodesic loops. Okay, so you can ask, I'm in some space and do I come back, right? So if you're on the Earth and you start somewhere, we're in Denmark, and I decided to go this way and I came back, I can pick another direction, the same will happen, right? I'll just come back, right? So whatever direction I pick, if I go long enough, I'll always come back. And I can, of course, start wherever I like. So there are infinitely many of these so-called geodesic loops on the sphere, on the surface of the Earth. So here's a question, an old question that asks, well, is this always the case, whatever shape I am on? So are there always infinitely many geodesic loops on a given manifold? So if you don't know the word manifold, then think nice geometric object. And if you do know the word manifold, then think closed Riemannian manifold, because that's what I should have said. Okay, so you need a manifold, but you actually know you need a Riemannian metric. You need a way to measure distances, otherwise the question doesn't make sense. Okay, so this is a question: is it always true that, like on the surface of the Earth, that there are always infinitely many of these geodesic loops? So there's a really spectacular theorem that dates 50 years now, by Graham and Meyer, that says yes, if M is topologically complicated enough. So they make an actual condition, right? They don't say topologically complicated enough, but it is what is important about this theorem. It says if your manifold, your geometric object, has enough of these complications, like this hole we saw in the donut, if it's complicated enough as a topological space, so global structure, then it is true that whatever way you choose to measure, whatever metric you put on it, it doesn't matter, you will always have infinitely many of these geodesic loops. So this is a really cool theorem. But this one is not very complicated. The sphere is not a very complicated space. And so the situation today is that we still don't know for a sphere of dimension at least 3 whether you always have infinitely many geodesics. When I say sphere, remember I still have my glasses, I forgot to put them on, right? I can't keep them on all the time. I'm a topologist, I'm not thinking the round sphere. I'm thinking, you know, the apple or the peach I'm trying to cut in the morning, and I'm there looking for geodesics and, you know, never find them, but you know, cut it anyway. So I'm thinking something that is roughly like for a topologist will be a sphere, for a geometer, well, it's not the round sphere, it's some other, it has some bumps, it's a little bit different, okay? So I can't, you know, we don't know the answer to this question, and you know, the global idea of the sort of things we do is to say, well, you know, how do we study the geodesics? We're going to study the geodesics, these geodesic loops as special points, so singularities, special points in this space of all loops, in this moduli space of all the possible loops, also all the wiggly ones that are not efficient. Right? So we take all these concepts together, we have a space, and we can use tools. So this is not a new idea as such, but we are like, you know, top-notch geometers and topologists, and we're going to use all our tools to study things this way. Okay, so that was the mathematics. So who are we? When I say we, who are we? So the center has 5 core members. So Tobias Paul-Collins, Kalecius Nielsmann Müller, Oscar Randall-Williams, who unfortunately couldn't make it today because he is stuck in Cambridge, and myself. But we're not working on this alone. As was said already, there's a very strong expertise, in particular in topology at the Institute, who will collaborate with, work with people who, you know, can help us with their tools. Karima Dupazito, Lars Hesselholt, who is also far away today, but with us from afar, you can see, from Japan, Jesper Gård Ibmatsen, Jesper Mikael Müller, and Dustin Clausen. So these are the sort of faculty, many of them are in this room, even Dustin. Yes, these are the faculty members, but really the heart of the center is a whole, you know, a big group of young people, postdocs and PhD students. So I put pictures here of the people who are here for the moment at the center. You know, this is like the life of the center. We need, you know, mathematics is about talking to each other and collaborating and, you know, creating all these things. So it's very important. A very important part of our center, and there are many, you know, there are more people to come. Some are on their way, basically. They come from all over the world, and you know, this is really what makes our center. So that's roughly who we are. And then, if you want to know more about what we actually do, so this afternoon we are having 3 talks. One by Tobias Colling, who will talk about stable structure, one by Markus Lann, who will talk about manifolds, algebraic theory, and excision, and one by Oscar Randall-Williams, who will give an online talk about diffeomorphisms of disks. Thank you for your attention.